I struggled with mental health from a very young age. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 5. Also oppositional defiant disorder.
You're destined for Jackass.
All of that, executive functioning. As I got older, I was misdiagnosed bipolar, and it turned into actually borderline personality disorder.
Do you have borderline? Is that?
I do.
Yeah, so that happens a lot where a borderline gets misdiagnosed as bipolar because of borderline mood instability, right? And so have you had what's called dialectical behavioral therapy?
I do DBT. I'm in the process of actually doing intense outpatient therapy for it because I have never completed a DBT program, and I really just want to, get as much as I can, as quickly as I can.
So good for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Do you want to share with people what that means, the DBT? Because it's people they hear these terms, but it's particular. I think just about everybody these days can benefit. Palestinians and the Israelis can benefit from some DBT.
We could all use some talk therapy.
Well, but this particularly, so tell them what DBT is.
Dialectical behavior therapy, to me, what it means is I experience emotional dysregulation. So DBT provides tools and skills to help with the dysregulation.
Right,
so,
and there's a piece of the dysregulation. Everybody's dysregulated these days, but borderline, something happens to them when they get dysregulated. They talk to you about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I don't know in particular. I'm still learning about it because as someone who has borderline, I find to be reading about it could be very triggering.
Yes,
just because it comes with a bad rep.
It gets negative. Yeah, it goes negative. I just for whatever reason, I do very well with borderline patients. I feel bad for them a lot because they suffer more than anybody,
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're aware borderlines can drive some people crazy, right?
Yeah.
So they can't be around it because of the projective identification. Are you familiar with that whole thing?
I know that I struggle with identity.
Unstable identity. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So unstable identity is part of borderline disorder, right? And part of unstable identity is unstable sexual orientation, gender identity, all that stuff. And I'm not disparaging anybody with these fluidities, but when I was working with borderlines, it was always to give them a stable sense of whatever that is for them. I'm really worried about this world where they go, well, today you're one thing and tomorrow you're something else. That would be bad for you.
I agree. I don't struggle necessarily because it's a spectrum, of course.
Correct.
With necessarily my sexual orientation or my gender. It's more of an identity of imposter syndrome, not thinking that you're good enough. My boyfriend who's gotten really educated on borderline, and that's how I know I'm really with a good partner. He'll try to remind me sometimes of, you're Rachel Wolfson. And to me, I just don't know what that means sometimes.
Right. And to some extent, I mean, you sort of strike me as someone that, like, adolescents get that way a lot. I feel like you have some of that stuff. Is that true? Yeah.
For sure.
And you have to be really careful as a borderline because you'd be attracted to sociopaths.
Yeah. I have definitely been attracted to that in the past.
And so good for you for now finding a way to be close to somebody who's not that. That's good. Because abandonment is a big issue for borderline.
And rejection.
Yeah, right.
And I work in the most rejecting industry you possibly could work in.
So I'm curious. This is all very. I'm sorry if.
I'm enjoying. I enjoy talking about it because I don't think enough people talk about borderline since it does get a bad rap.
It gets sort of they're borderline But the one thing I want to say about the dialectical behavioral therapy is that when you get dysregulated, the big liability for borderlines is they lose track of other people's emotions completely. And then your projective identification, you can see your stuff in other people, and then you start manipulating that, and that's the liability.
Also, the very black and white thinking, you're either good or you're bad. The gray area is very hard.
Back and forth, from all good to all bad. So right now I'm all good. She could shit on me in a few minutes.
You're good.
I could be all bad in a few minutes.
Never.
But it feels like your stuff, I don't feel any of it. It feels like it's all kind of calmed down.
It's been very important for me to get a hold of this. So I'm not perfect. I'm not an expert either, but I really value getting this under control.
Do you worry that getting it under control will affect your comedy?
I've heard that there are people who have borderline and they go and get the help that they need and they don't crave getting on stage or getting external validation like that because they're finally validating themselves.
Yeah.
I would have been a stand-up either way.
I will tell you that is a feature of anybody in any kind of growth. When you're in this is for everybody. When you're in any kind of growth situation, you just got to be prepared to become whoever you're supposed to be. And sometimes that isn't somebody who gets on stage and does comedy. That doesn't mean that's going to happen. That just means you need that to allow that to happen. And by the way, you'll be okay with it if that's what you grow into.
Right.
But you don't have to lose track of any of your skill. No way. In fact, I would argue that you might be able to kind of be a ninja with some of this stuff because you're probably pretty good at picking other people's emotions and stuff. Borderlands are very good at that stuff. And so you could still use that. You'll always have that.
Of course.
You can use that with your audience work.
And art is very therapeutic for me. And it is an art, and getting up on stage and making people laugh. It's almost like it can turn my bad day around. So as soon as I hear the first laugh, there's a release that happens inside me.
Oh, interesting. So, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And then how'd you get involved with the Jackass guys?
Johnny Knoxville just hit me up on Instagram one day. He had been following me for a while after.
Did you shit on him too in the DM?
No, I almost couldn't believe it was real at first. And I think he followed me after one of my jokes went viral. And he noticed that I have a lot of Jackass style humor. And he thought I would be a good fit to join the family.
He's very astute.
Yeah.
That boy created this whole thing. People don't appreciate that. How's he doing? Is he okay? Last time I saw him, he'd just been kicked in the head by a bull, and he scared the hell out of me.
He's doing okay. He's hanging in there.
Good.
Yeah.
And you said before the mics heated up, I was talking about how quickly your career has gone along, and you said, "Oh, now I'm in the most painful part." What do you mean by that?
Well, I think it's all relative. I am 7 years in, and I got thrown into headlining, which is I'm very grateful for the opportunities. Don't get me wrong, but someone 7 years in, very rarely are they headlining. And I just, I'm out there. I feel like underdeveloped, and I'm
this,
not.
Ladies and gentlemen, is the imposter effect. Here it is in full bloom.
I want to give
but
them,
there's a reality piece. You have to hone your skill.
Right. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself, and that comes from my parents are very successful. And so
of course, you're from Vegas.
Yes, born and raised.
But all this stuff, the early, ADD and the dysregulation stuff suggests trauma. Was it just abandonment because your parents were workaholics?
Yeah, that's mainly what it is. And I had a lot of babysitters, so I was being tossed around to different. I would get close to adults, and then they would leave.
Do anything to you?
Not that nothing like physical, but there was some neglect, and I had a very particular bad babysitter who would just send us to our room without food and leave us there, and that was pretty traumatizing, and her reactions were very intense. She used to paint these little porcelain masks, and I remember one day she gave me one to paint, but I didn't do it properly, and I was very young, and she smashed it on the ground right in front of me. Yeah. So it's things like that stay with you as a kid.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Well, you're getting better now.
Yeah.
You've turned it into this very creative outlet.
And you know what? My parents, as much as I've grown, they've grown up with me, and our relationship is so much better now that we're adults and can kind of process what we all went through.
What did they do that took you away? Took them away from you?
My parents were lawyers. They were criminal defense attorneys.
Yeah, I was going to say it had to be doctors, lawyers.
And then
because it's just in our DNA.
They became politicians.
Oh,
so yeah,
worse yet. Oh, this must be great for their political career. Having you out there on Jackass and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's definitely helped. No, they're very proud of me. So,
good.
Yeah.